10 years ago, Grand Theft Auto Online was released to the public. In the game's release, there was not many special cars. Like, for example, nowadays we have the Deluxo, Toreador, Scramjet, Vigilante, Ruiner 2000, Oppressor Mark II, Oppressor, and these are just a couple vehicles I can name right off the top of my head that are quite well known in Grand Theft Auto Online public lobbies. Guaranteed, if you get into a lobby with over 20 people, at least 10 of those players are going to be driving an Oppressor Mark II at some point in the lobby. What if I told you that there's a car that was released over 8 years ago when the first heist saw the light of day in Grand Theft Auto Online that is still more relevant than the majority of armored and weaponized vehicles that have been added ever since? When I say the name, almost all of you will already know what I'm talking about, but how many of you actually use this car nowadays in Grand Theft Auto Online? Well, you might start using it a little bit more. This being the Armored Karuma. When the Armored Karuma was first released into Grand Theft Auto Online, it was the most popular vehicle in the game. No matter what lobby you went into, you would find somebody terrorizing a lobby in an Armored Karuma. It was everybody's car. You'd see them parked all over the streets. And it made sense, because at the time when the Armored Karuma was released, the only real other armored vehicle was the Insurgent, and that made sense because it was part of the exact same heist update. It really took years before Rockstar started releasing more and more weaponized vehicle, like the gunrunning update about 2 years later with the Insurgent Pickup Custom and the Oppressor, and we all know just how big the Oppressor was when it got released. Really, the reason the Armored Karuma has stopped being used is because it's faded away into obscurity. It can't survive any explosions, and that's a serious problem when we're in a game filled with vehicles that can launch missiles faster than you can even react to. You've got the Toreador, the Deluxo, the Oppressors, and so many other missile-slinging vehicles, let alone all the aircraft available in the game at this point, that for the majority of players, the Armored Karuma just is a distant relic in the past. But even today, I'd be willing to say the Armored Karuma is still the best vehicle for completing missions in the game. Why? Well, it all dumbs down to one thing, and that is armor. This vehicle, while not able to take any explosions, is completely bulletproof. There are certain areas where you can take maybe one shot of damage from a single stray bullet, but all you need to do is heal yourself and you're back up to full. The chances of you dying in an Armored Karuma from AI or even players shooting at you is slim to none. Even 8 years later, there are still no vehicles that come even remotely close to the amount of protection the Armored Karuma carries. For example, if we take a look at some bullet-resistant cars, first of all we have the normal armor vehicles, like the Armored Shafter V12, the Armored Baller LE. These vehicles do have bullet-resistant glass, but after 26 rounds, or a single shot from a minigun, the glass will be completely broken, and once again your car is able to be completely shot through. This is the same for some of the OG Amani Tech vehicles like the Buffalo STX and Dubachi Champion. But again, you can break through the glass, so it's not bulletproof, it's just bullet resistant. We can step up the armor. How about to the Duke O Death? This vehicle features big metal plates all around the car, and these will stop bullets, but there are still problems. For example, the Duke O Death has a massive slit right where the driver's head peeks out, making it very easy for enemy players to shoot you right in the head and finish you off. That is also the same for the side of the vehicle. It has little metal grates on the side, but they stop nothing when it comes to bulletproof protection. Okay, what else do we have on the chopping block? Well, we have the half-track. This vehicle's front glass is completely bulletproof, but again, the side glass is still able to be shot through, plus the half-track is so dang slow that trying to complete missions is basically useless. So the final and really only vehicle that I can say comes close to the armored protection the Karuma has is the Future Shock ZR380. This is, in my opinion, one of the best armored vehicles in the game, which I've made previous videos on talking about why it's so good. The entire front glass is completely bulletproof, and same for the back. Now, while you're able to shoot through the sides of the car, it's very fast, actually one of the fastest vehicles in the game, and it's also able to survive a couple missiles. So it's kind of got the best of both worlds. But even then, it is still not completely bulletproof, giving the Armored Karuma a slight edge even over some of the best cars in the game. A lot of players might be quick to judge and say, why would I ever use an Armored Karuma when I can pull out my Oppressor Mark II or my Toreador Deluxo and blow the player up before they even have a chance to retaliate? Well, I have a very simple response, and that is heists and missions. You cannot use a Deluxo, Toreador, or really any missile-slinging vehicle in missions. In fact, the only one that you can use is the Vigilante, which I've talked about in the past and showcased why it is one of the best vehicles to complete missions with. But even then, the Vigilante features very poor bulletproof protection, and in certain missions where you're up against juggernauts, for example, it is very tricky to use a vehicle like the Vigilante because you might get completely blown up, which is why I still believe that the Armored Karuma has some of the best merits to be used in any missions whatsoever. For example, I was trying to complete the Criminal Mastermind Challenge with my friends about a year ago. Unfortunately, two of the friends that I played with stopped playing GTA, so we never actually completed it, but we got all the way to the Pacific Standard Heist. And the Criminal Mastermind Challenge is simple. You need to complete all 4 of the OG heists on hardest difficulty without a single player dying once. Now, this is quite tricky. This is like 20 missions in total, all of them getting harder and harder in difficulty, plus the heists themselves, and you cannot fail once the entire time. You can imagine how using a vehicle like the Armored Karuma is a godsend because you cannot take damage inside of the car. I remember telling my friends to literally only use the Armored Karuma when doing the missions because it is one of the only vehicles that can guarantee your safety. Let's say your motorcycle club is being raided. Well, if you die during that raid, there is a very high possibility that you will instantly lose all of your product. Once again, another great example of a situation where the Armored Karuma guarantees that you won't die, and therefore you won't lose any product. The Armored Karuma is only $525,000 on Southern San Andreas, which is an incredibly cheap price tag. It is especially good because if you're a newer player, this is one of my absolute go-to recommendations for armored vehicles. As a new player, you're mainly going to be completing missions which involve a lot of AI trying to kill you, so the Armored Karuma makes these missions much easier and it almost feels like you're cheating. So I would highly recommend, for any newer players, if you're watching this video already, just pick up an Armored Karuma because it will save you so much time in the long run. I even personally still use the Armored Karuma, even after making $700 million on my GTA account and owning almost every single armored vehicle that you can name and imagine. I still go back to the Armored Karuma for certain missions, especially the Dr. Dre missions. It is very easy to complete them with the Armored Karuma because you never ever have to worry about dying. So at the end of the day, the Armored Karuma is still a fantastic purchase in Grand Theft Auto Online. And while it is a car that is 8 years old, it shows that it is still an incredibly impressive vehicle. There are so many YouTubers that try to claim Grand Theft Auto Online is subject to the worst power creep seen in the gaming industry. I completely disagree. While I do think Rockstar has added some pretty busted vehicles like the Oppressor and the Deluxo and the Toreador, at the same time, they've still never made a fully bulletproof vehicle apart from the Armored Karuma. The only other time we've had a fully bulletproof car was when the Sterling GT got a revamp and Rockstar accidentally made the livery come across the entire vehicle, including the windows, making the car bulletproof. But that was only for about a month, as it was patched right after, and just like that, the Armored Karuma still became the most useful car in Grand Theft Auto Online when it comes to missions. Hopefully, you enjoyed today's video. If you'd like to see more like it, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below, and let me know if you agree or disagree with what I have to say. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.